We thank God for having called us back. It's been a while, and things are getting a little bit tough, but we shall endure because it says that Jesus told us that whosoever endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. There are many things you have to overcome in order to make sure that the message goes to the world. Let's look at part 3. Oh, we are going to part 3. We saw that there were 3 announcements. There were 2 announcements about Babylon. One is found in Daniel, and the other one is found in Revelation. When we talk about Babylon's fall, so there was the first Babylon that fell, and then we see the antitypical Babylon that will fall. So the type and antitype, and there was many, and there was is fallen, Babylon the Great. And we saw also as well that this city is the city of all Babylonian teaching. If you look at all these, city of confusion, really, all the gods, the what, everything together in one. And the word Catholic means universal, all unified into one. And we saw that this system must come to an end. God will bring it to an end. We saw as well in this book the story of our church. It also showed us that we are supposed to send a message of judgment to the world. Please, members, there's nothing you're supposed to tell the world now except to tell people that God's judgment hour is come. The hour of his judgment is come. And the work of judgment is going on in heaven now. For the investigative judgment began in October 22nd, 1844. And we know that they started with the dead. Of course, Adam was the first, or we can talk about all the others. But Adam was presented in 1844. He stood before God. Now, question: did Adam stand there when he's already dead? His record, while he was still alive, was recorded and presented into the most holy place. So Adam stood there as if he's alive, but he was already dead. But his record, while he was still alive, was presented before God. Even to us, when we are still alive and we present our record, taken into the sanctuary, there we shall be as if we are alive before God. And there was a call out of Babylon, and we saw that there was a war, a very big one, when the Maronite movement was asked, when these people decided to move out of these congregations to separate themselves from the congregations, and they were not given any time or even any platform to speak. And that tells you that there will be no platform even in the antitype for explaining your view to the world, but you will be thrown out. And we saw that. Thus, the message of the second angel was joined to that of the first. The term Babylon was applied directly to the churches which reject the doctrine of judgment and the return of Jesus. So anyone, even within the ranks of God's people, who refuse the message of judgment and the return of Christ, they become Babylon. So if at this time we are supposed to be preaching the 3 angels' message, telling people, come out of Babylon, Babylon is fallen, and telling them that God's judgment hour is come. If anyone says that message is pointing to others and looking and attacking others, then that person has become Babylon. So because why does he fear to attack Babylon if he's not a friend of Babylon? The only way you can become, uh, you can start engaging in a discussion with Babylon and sympathizing with Babylon is when you are in Babylon. So you have to come out of Babylon. So this message also goes to you. And when you read Luke 12:47 to tell you from 40 that that servant also, which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, will be beaten many stripes. And also it says that blessed is that servant whose Lord shall find so doing. So there is a servant who will be found doing what his master told him. And there is again another servant who will say, my Lord delayeth his coming, and starts to smite his fellow servants. So time is coming when people within the ranks of even the Jews will start smiting others and claiming that the master has delayed. You who preach that the end has come, you are wrong. So that is still part of Babylon. Be very careful. We are not saying that there is the church is Babylon, but we're saying all of those in the church who still refuse the message become Babylon. But the truth will always remain with the saints and the church. So they tell you by the sum of 1844, at least 50,000 believers had separated from the churches to form groups of their own. So there is going to be a separation because the Bible tells us there will be separation and there will be a shaking and they'll be throwing people out of the truth as others will be entering the truth. Those who disbelieve it, by the time I saw members in church, as I was growing up, you look at people who used to be very, very good at the message, practicing it right now. They are some of the most haters of the truth. Now you ask yourself, had they, by that time, had they been deceived that they have now seen the light, or now they have seen the darkness and have rejected the light? One of the two must be correct. Come out of her, my people, is the message. If you go back to this book, and they said the message of the second angel directs to believers in the first angel's message to leave the unfriendly fellowship of the popular churches. Okay. Now listen carefully. It says to the message to leave the unfriendly fellowship of the popular churches. This book is written by the General Conference of the Seventh Adventist Church. And it is saying that we must come out of. Now, if the church, any church, even claiming to be Adventist, becomes popular, seeks for popularity, then they tell you, leave that church. In fact, as we shall see in the next lecture, there's an archbishop called Fulton Sheen who said that if I was to look, okay, so let's go on. The, the influence of Rome, let's continue. The influence of Rome in the countries that once acknowledged her dominion is still far from being destroyed. Remember that Rome got a wound just because the state, because Rome got a sword. He who killeth with a sword must be killed with a sword. So there was this spiritual and the state sword, or what they call the secular sword. So Rome was not acknowledged by the secular powers they see it was losing all the power. So they foretells a restoration of her power. So Rome will get restored and will have her power again. But how does she get her power? Remember, she got the power when all the nations during the Dark Ages acknowledged Rome as the supreme authority. That means even in her restoration of power is when they acknowledged her again. The Catholic Church is acknowledged, the papacy is acknowledged as the supreme authority with the ability to enforce things as they want. The wound was healed and all the world wondered after the beast. The infliction of the deadly wound points to the downfall of the papacy in 1798. After this, says the prophet, his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Paul states plainly that the man of sin will continue until the second advent. To the very close of time, he will carry forward the work of deception, and the Revelator declares, also referring to the papacy, all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, the papacy, whose names are not written in the book of life. Revelation 13:8. In both the Old and New World, the papacy will receive homage in the honor paid to the Sunday institution, that rests solely upon the authority of the Roman Church. So she wants to create a new world where everyone will acknowledge Sunday. So the only way Rome can get its power back is when they acknowledge Sunday as the authority, the day to be kept holy. That is darkness before dawn, page 27, paragraph 1. Now let's go to Catechism of the Catholic Church in the 10 Commandments, and we see what do they say. Today, Rome uses the word solidarity, common good, all of these things. So what are they really talking about? Let's look at this. The seventh commandment. You remember, it says, thou shalt not steal. The seventh commandment forbids, in fact, even if I read, if you look at this commandment, it doesn't say you shall not steal. It says thou. And in the Bible, thou is singular, but you can be plural. So it says thou, that means it is an individual commandment, something to be done individually. But if you put you shall not, then you are making this a group commandment that we are supposed to strive together to keep the commandment. That is wrong. Salvation is personal. Even keeping God's commandments is personal. It's not group. So putting you shall not steal is already pointing as if it's plural, and you have to work as together to avoid stealing. Now notice what they say. What does the Catechism say? Unjustly taking or keeping the goods of one's neighbor and wronging him in any way with respect to his goods. Listen carefully. The seventh commandment forbids unjustly taking or keeping the goods of one's neighbor and wronging him in any way with respect to his goods. Now, it is written very carefully in a disguised way. It says unjustly. Now, who defines justly? What if it is justly is when the Pope declares that this can be shared and this is not shared. Then when you take that which they have defined to be common, to be for all, then you have stolen and have taken it unjustly. It commands justice and charity in the care of the earthly goods and the fruits of men's labor. For the sake of the common good, now listen carefully, for the sake of the common good, it requires respect for the universal destination of goods and respect for the right to private property. You see? So now there is a universal, there is a you. We're going to work together to avoid, to make sure that the destination of goods is universal. It's a group, it's not individual. Tithe at this point will be universal. It will not be again individual. You see, every time someone is given the money, God demands that person to calculate, to get the tithe and give it to God. It's an individual thing. But now it will become group, that a certain group of individuals can even deduct the money from you and take away the tithe, still under the catechism of the Catholic Church. So deduction of money from the account of someone without the person himself deducting it, giving it away, just because that person works under that institution, is already showing that it is universal destination of goods. If every pastor is working, then we should deduct all the pastor's salary and we should remove the tithe. That is wrong. Christian life strives to order this world's goods to God and to fraternal charity. So you see, fratelli tutti coming in. So common good and which is Laudato Si and fratelli tutti were already embedded when they changed the 10 Commandments, and they're explaining them in the view of the Catholic understanding. So how many today keep the Catholic understanding of the 10 Commandments, not the biblical one? The biblical one says, thou shalt not steal, full stop. So you don't steal from God, don't steal from man. So, and the word stealing means someone has his own property. Because you cannot steal except if it is mine. But now, if goods are universal, they're all, no one owns, then how can we have anything like stealing? The universal destination and private ownership of goods. In the beginning, God entrusted each, the earth, and its resources to the common stewardship of mankind. Oh, good grief. To the common stewardship of mankind. Still, they add the word common. But the Bible tells us it was given to Adam to take care of them, master them by labor, and enjoy their fruits. The goods of creation are destined for the whole human race. I have no problem with that, but it's something small. However, the earth is divided among men, divided up among men to assure the security of their lives. Endangered by poverty and threatened by violence, the appropriation of property is legitimate for guaranteeing the freedom and dignity of persons, for helping each of them to meet his basic needs and the needs of those in his charge. It should allow for a natural solidarity to develop between men. So you make sure that you bring people collectively to all endorse something to do with the dignity and taking care of the poor. But the Bible tells you that the poor are always with you, but I'm not always with you. At that point when Judas was saying, we would have given the money to the poor. Why would we waste all that ointment? We would have sold it this amount and then give it to the poor, and just said, the poor are always there with you. So taking away poverty, when Christ says the poor are always there, then you are saying that you are dealing away with the words of Christ. because Christ said the poor are always with you. So who are you to remove poverty? Then you must be antichrist. In order to remove the words of Christ, you must be antichrist. The right to private property acquired by work or received from others by inheritance or gift does not do away with the original gift of the earth to the whole of mankind. The universal destination of goods remains primordial, even if the promotion of the common good requires respect for the right of private property and its exercise. Ask yourself, when Christ came to this world, did he take away the poor? No. Did Christ strive to make everyone equal? No. Even when he went to heal, he healed some. He never healed everyone he found. When he went to the pool of Bethesda, he never healed everyone there, though he found many, but only healed one. Then, if we now strive to say that we are dealing with to promote common good, we have to respect the right of private property and its exercise. So they're trying to tell you that the universal destination of good remains primordial, even if we are the promotion of common good requires respect. But we want first of all to have universal destination of goods. In his use of things, man should regard the external goods he legitimately owns not merely as exclusive to himself, but common to others. Also in the sense that they can benefit others as well as himself. Okay? So the goods are for others as well as himself. The ownership of any property makes its holder a steward of providence, with the task of making it fruitful and communicating its benefit to others. First of all, his family. So you see, now once you create now a family in the whole world, then the goods must be shared in the family. So there's nothing like I own. This is where it goes. Goods of production, material or immaterial, such as land, listen carefully, land, factories, practical or artistical skills, oblige their possessors to employ them in ways that will benefit greatest numbers. So, in other words, you are forcing people, whatever they have. I have no problem if I have to share my goods with someone, but it should not be a universal law from someone to dictate that, please, you have to use your things this way, or we shall take them away from you. It's like if I fail to give tithe and you come and I deduct it by force, that you may help me not to steal the tithe. That is theft, according to the Bible. That is theft, because I've not given it myself. Those who hold goods for use and consumption should use them with moderation, reserving the better part for guests, for the sick, and the poor. So the better part, I like this one, for the better part for the sick and for the poor. Political authority has the right and duty to regulate the legitimate exercise of the right to ownership for the sake of the common good. Have you heard that? Political authority has the right and duty to regulate the legitimate exercise of the right to ownership for the sake of the common good. So the political authorities, the presidents and the kings of this world, they have been given a right and duty to make sure that they regulate your exercise of right of ownership, but in the angle of common good, not how you like it. If the common good says you're supposed to eat 2 meals a day, but you have your food, you are not allowed to eat 2 meals a day because it's not for the common good. Let others also eat too, even if they have grown or they have not grown it, even if they have not worked for it. Now, what about the passage that says, he, the one that laboreth is the one that should eat, and you shall eat of your own sweat, shalt thou eat of it. They told Adam, out of your own sweat shalt thou eat of the ground. Now, if those who don't cultivate have to eat just because it's common good, then all those texts will be removed, and that means I can sit down, don't work, and wait for the common good to provide for me food. And that's the best definition of laziness. Now, don't you see that that's a connection with Sunday? Because another definition of laziness is when you rest before work. Now, if there are 7 days and you rest on the first day before you work, isn't that laziness? Resting before work, even sitting and eating before without working is laziness. That's why the common good and Sunday are linked together, and it is all unbiblical, really, from the Antichrist. Respect for persons and their goods. In economic matters, respect for human dignity requires the practice of the virtue of temperance so as to moderate attachment to this world's goods. The practice of the virtue of justice to preserve our neighbor's rights and render him what is his due, and practice of solidarity in accordance with the golden rule and in keeping with the generosity of the Lord, who, though he was rich, yet for your sake became poor, so that by his poverty you might become rich. So, in other words, they are showing that they become poor, that they can get the goods and distribute them to the poor. So the seventh commandment forbids theft, that is, usurping another's property against the reasonable will of the owner. What if now I have a car and you take it away from me without me allowing to take it? They say, no, that is not theft, because the common good is the owner. And they have already told us that the nations, the political authority has the right to dictate who is the owner. So if the state has the cars, if you take the car and use it in a way that the state has not authorized, then you are stealing. But not the state stealing from you. There is no theft if consent can be presumed, or if refusal is contrary to the reason and universal destination of goods. So you see, there is no theft if consent can be presumed, or if refusal is contrary to reason. So when you refuse, when your refusal is contrary to reason and the universal destination of goods, which is the common good, then that is not theft. You see where we're going. This is Catholic understanding of what we look at today as common good. You are going to own nothing. This is the case in obvious and urgent necessity, when the only way to provide for immediate essential needs is to put at one's disposal and use the property of others. Even if it does not contradict the provisions of civil law, any form of unjustly taking and keeping the property of others is against the seventh commandment. Question: if the court of justice, the court says it is just when we use all things together, and I say, no, excuse me, this is my land, I have right over it, the court will say you are taking it unjustly. So justice depends on the leader. Thus, deliberate retention of goods lent, of objects lost, business fraud, paying unjust wages, forcing up prices by taking advantage of the ignorance or hardship of another. So they put this in a language that is very interesting. Now let's look at the social doctrine of the Catholic Church, of the Church. Article 24:19. Christian revelation. Christian revelation promotes deeper understanding of the laws of social living. The church receives from the gospel the full revelation of the truth about man. When she fulfills her mission of proclaiming the gospel, she bears witness to man in the name of Christ, to his dignity and his vocation, to the communion of persons. She teaches him to the demands of justice and peace in conformity with divine wisdom. So the church, since she's directed directly by the Holy Spirit or Christ, she can enforce and teach the justice. She teaches him to the demands of justice. So justice tells you you must conform to the divine wisdom, which divine wisdom is now the common good. So the Pope was given divine wisdom to put Laudato Si. Therefore, that is justice, and we must demand for it. The church makes a moral judgment about economic and social matters. Excuse me. The church makes a moral judgment about economic and social matters. So who is in charge of economic things around the world? The church. Who is in charge of social matters in the world? The church. When the fundamental rights of the person or the salvation of souls requires it. So when the rights of a person demand for it, or the salvation of souls requires it, then the church has to direct. So when oil is at this price and social rights and economic the person's rights demand it, or the salvation of men demands we increase it, then the fuels will go high. The fuel prices will go high. In the moral order, she bears a mission distinct from that of political authorities. So political authorities, their order is not compared to the one of the church. How? The church is concerned with the temporal aspects of the common good because they are ordered to the sovereign good, our ultimate end. She strives to inspire right attitudes with respect to earthly goods and in socio-economic relationship. So when we see the World Economic Forum, who is ordering everything they're saying? According to them, the church. Who is ordering the social, whether homosexuality, abortion, all these social things, even land, how to hold it, and when, and who should? It is the church, according to the Catholic Church. (24:21). The social doctrine of the church developed in the 19th century when the gospel encountered modern industrial society with its new structures for the production of consumer goods, its new concept of society, the state and authority, and its new forms of labor and ownership. The development of the doctrine of the church on economic and social matters attests the permanent value of the church's teaching at the same time as it attests the true meaning of her tradition, always living and active. So it is her tradition that should engage in all the church doctrines, and which is social doctrine. The church's social teaching comprises of a body of doctrine, which is articulated as the church interprets events in the course of history. So the church can sit down and interpret events in history in any way she wants. And then it will give you that as a body of doctrines. With the assistance of the Holy Spirit in the light of the whole of what has been revealed by Jesus Christ, this teaching can be more easily accepted by men of goodwill. The more the faithful let themselves be guided by it. So when you accept the church to guide you, then they will always tell you what they want as long as you accept them to guide you. The church poses principles for reflection. It provides criteria for judgment. It gives guidelines for action. You see, the church's social teaching proposes principles for reflection, what you can reflect upon. It provides criteria for judgment. It gives guidelines for action. So whatever COP27 is thinking, or World Economic Forum, or any meeting, sitting, whether ECOWAS, whatever they're thinking, it is a pen of the church, the social teaching. Any system in which social relationships are determined entirely by economic factors is contrary to the nature of the human person and his acts. A theory that makes profit the conclusive norm and ultimate end of economic activity is morally unacceptable. So when you bring a theory that makes profit the exclusive norm and ultimate end of economic activity is morally unacceptable. So when you do a business and your aim is getting profits, that and for yourself, that is unacceptable. The disordered desire for money cannot but produce perverse effects. It is one of the causes of many conflicts which disturb the social order. So you imagine a country where people do business to get something they earn in order to live. But they say, no, 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 we don't want that. Why? Because that is capitalism, as we shall see in time, in a little time to come. Every practice that reduces persons to nothing more than a means of profit enslaves man, leads to idolizing money, and contributes to the spread of atheism. You cannot serve God and mammon. There's a way I like these Jesuits have the right things that they use scriptures in their own way that makes me really amazed and fascinated. The church has rejected the totalitarian and atheistical ideologies associated in modern times with communism and socialism. She has likewise refused to accept in the practice of capitalism. So the church doesn't deal with capitalism, individualism, and the absolute primacy of the law of the marketplace over human labor. So individualism, the church doesn't like. It has refused to accept capitalism, individualism, and the absolute primacy of the law of marketplace over human labor. Regulating the economy solely by centralized planning perverts the basis of social bounds. Reasonable regulation of the marketplace and economic activities in keeping with the justly hierarchy of values and the view to the common good is to be commended, as long as it keeps with the common good. that one is commended. If it's not in the common good, which common is what the Pope defines, not what you call common. And if we go to the Catechism of the Church, you will find that the commandments were changed. As they're written, we are going to look at this. The website where I've been reading is down there. You can look at it to see what it entails. Now let's go to this encyclical of Pope Benedict the 16th called Caritas in Veritate, which means love in truth or charity in truth. So how do you show love in reality or in truth or charity? It says, in the face of the unrelenting growth of global interdependence, there is a strongly felt need, even in the midst of global recession, for a form of the United Nations organization, for a reform of the United Nations organization. So there needs a reform to the UN, and likewise of the economic institutions and international finance. Nations can acquire real teeth. One also senses the urgent need to find innovative ways of implementing the principle of the responsibility to protect and to give poor nations an effective voice in shared decision making. So now they want everyone to come on the same level, then they can rule them. This seems necessary in order to arrive at a political, juridical, and economical order which can increase and give direction to the international cooperation for the development of all peoples in solidarity. So he lays what the United Nations needs to do in order to achieve the goals. Listen now. To manage the global economy, to revive economies hit by the crisis, to avoid any deterioration of the present crisis and the greater imbalances that would result, to bring about integral and timely disarmament, food security and peace, to guarantee the protection of the environment and to regulate migration. For all of this, there is urgent need of a true world political authority, as my predecessor, Blessed John the 23rd, indicated some years ago. So he's saying he first laid what is required, then he said that in order for all of this to be achieved, to come out of the economic crisis, so you create the crisis, then you see how to come out of it. Global economy, everything falls down. And the only way to come out of it is there is an urgent need of a true world political authority. So we need one power on top, which is worldwide, to enforce this. Which power is that? Such an authority would need to be regulated by law, to observe consistently the principles of subsidiarity and solidarity, to seek to establish the common good. So there must be an authority which has to bring subsidiarity, solidarity, and to establish the common good. Which power do you think is that is? Which authority? It must be the papacy. And to make a commitment to securing authentic integral human development inspired by the values of charity in truth. Furthermore, such an authority would need to be universally recognized and to be vested with effective power to ensure security for all, regard for justice, and respect for rights. So in other words, the world must submit to that power and give its authority universally allowed. So it should recognize it universally. The entire world must acknowledge it. This is like a script of great controversy by Ellen White. Obviously, it would have to have the authority to ensure compliance with its decisions from all parties, and also with the coordinated measures adopted in various international forums. So in other words, all international forums should invest that power with all the authority and trust her in whatever they're going to do. So in other words, the church must be given authority. This is why the Pope is moving, gathering all this. They should give, she's now showing that she's capable of doing these things. Without this, despite the great progress accomplished in various sectors, international law would risk being conditioned by the balance of power among the strongest nations. So whatever you are thinking about, it will not work if you don't accept a universal body. They also require the construction of a social order that at last conforms to the moral order. So the social order should conform to the moral order. So who is the moral authority of the world? The papacy. To the interconnection between moral and social spheres, and to the link between politics and economic and civil spheres as envisaged by the Charter of the United Nations. So who can put politics, economics, civil, social, and all these spheres together? Only the papacy. So there is no other thing. That's what is written in Caritas in Veritate, which is the Ratzinger's, the Pope Benedict's encyclical, trying to show you that the common good is already what everyone has been thinking about. It's not Pope Francis starting the common good. It has been something of the past. So Babylon is building slowly, going into nations, trying to build itself back. Now, there is an encyclical, letter of Pope Pius the 11th, and let us read what it says. There is, I got it directly from Vatican.va. I don't want people to say my sources are obscure. Yet, before proceeding to explain these matters, the principle which Leo XIII so clearly established must be laid down at the outset here, namely, that there resides, listen now carefully, that there resides in us, capital S, capital U, who is us, the church, the right and duty to pronounce with supreme authority upon social and economic matters. Bang. There they say it, from the horse's mouth. They have the right and duty to pronounce with supreme authority upon social and economic matters. Now you can find, even within the Jews, organizations that are economic and are social, and they say this has nothing to do with the papacy. Excuse me, open your eyes, you're so blind. There it says openly that the supreme authority upon social and economic matters resides in the Vatican. Whether you want to receive money, whether you want to do any business, they have the right and duty. Certainly, the church was not given the commission to guide men to earn only fleeting and perishable happiness, but to that which is eternal. Indeed, the church holds that it is unlawful for her to mix without cause in these temporal concerns. However, she can in no wise renounce the duty God entrusted to her to interpose her authority. She has the power or the duty given by God according to to Catholicism to interpose her authority, not of course in matters of technique for which she is neither suitably equipped nor endowed by office, but in all things that are connected with the moral law. For as to this, the deposit of truth that God committed to us, capital, and the grave duty of disseminating and interpreting the whole moral law, they have interpreted it already, and of urging it in season and out of season, bringing under and subject to our supreme jurisdiction, not only social order, but economic activities themselves. So all things that are happening in the economy, whether this is Bill Gates and name any economists, name them, whatever they do, direction is from the Pope. Now, this is called Father General because he doesn't want to be called a Black Pope, so it would require or would prefer to be called Father General, and he is the head of the Jesuits, Father Arturo Sosa. Let's hear him tell us what does he think about Pope Francis and what he's doing.
Well, Pope Francis has been a kind of pressure for, for my life and the life of the church. I feel for the society. I think Pope Francis speak a language I can understand very well. No? He speaks the language of the pastors in the barrios and the villas in Latin America. You can feel his way of preaching, way of reading the gospel, a long experience to be in touch with the poor people and with the heart of the poor people, and the sensibility to the needs of the persons, and the creativity to make something, and not to be always the same in the same way of doing things. And I think really, as I said before, a question, an invitation to creativity, to pastor creativity, to bring the pastoral way of acting as a priest, as a lesson, as a Christian, before following norms and following traditions or just really need the sense of truth to the needs for the person in front of them. Yeah. So I make sure that I get it correct one the Jesuits themselves, so that I have to teach them. You have it from the some lives. That confess is mine. Whatever is done is what the church has been doing about. She wants to retain her power to control the environment. So Babylon is soon surviving herself. Now, they talk about capitalism, but they don't like it. So you have to now to see the whatever the Jesuits said, whatever the Catholic Church is, I should love. And whatever I write, the word capitalism, uneconomic and ecosystem in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. So capitalism is when I do things privately and get my profit and use it for myself, not directed by the state.
Rome doesn't want that. Capitalism, also called free market economy or free enterprise economy, economic system dominated in the Western world since the breakup of feudalism, in which most means of production are privately owned and production is guided and income distributed largely through the operation of markets. So when you do your own business and get your own money, Rome doesn't want that. So which command now when you tell someone that you cannot own something except if the state tells you how to use it, then when we use it together commonly, how do you tell someone that thou shalt not steal when I have nothing with me? I own nothing. So how do they steal from me something I don't own? So here is a let them tell us, rather trying to tell us, what does it mean to for capitalism? What does capitalism mean and Protestantism?
Modern capitalism is not characterized by the drive to make as much money as you can, but by the wish to gradually increase your profits in a controlled, calculated, goal rational way. The modern entrepreneur wants to create a predictably increasing flow of profits, and he tries to realize this by organizing his enterprise in a completely rational way. Now, the strange thing is that this hard-working capitalist never enjoys the fruits of his labor. He may succeed in generating this ever-growing stream of money, but he continues to lead an ascetic life. This surprising combination leads to the expansion of capitalism, because the profits now are pumped back, so to speak, into the enterprise, as they are not needed for more frivolous purposes. This spirit of capitalism leads to a flowering capitalism, and it is also produced by capitalism. But how did this capitalist spirit come into existence in the first place? We can already find it in Western Europe in the 16th century, before serious takeoff of modern capitalism. Here Weber presents his famous thesis, according to which the Protestant ethic had an important influence on the spirit of capitalism in its earliest phase.
Okay, so who is the author of capitalism? Protestant Reformation. So the Protestant Reformation said we should take things back to people, take it from the ownership of the state, and let people have their own ownership. Then they can keep God's law. For example, if you tell me uh, all women are used commonly, then how can you say thou shalt not commit adultery? So God's people could not keep the law because everything was commonly used. Now, if the common good says Sunday is the day we should commonly have, can you keep the Sabbath? You cannot. What if the common good says, let everyone have the images? The others worship their stones, everyone the common. Can you tell someone, thou shalt not make idols, graven images, thou shalt not bow before them? You cannot tell people to keep God's law when there's no capitalism. So when they remove capitalism, then the entire law of God is dispensed. And that's what Rome wants, because it is an attack on the law of God. What does Pope Francis do to capitalism? Let's watch.
The Catholic Church has collected tens of billions of dollars in assets over the years, all under the nonprofit tax-exempt umbrella. Now, Pope Francis pointing fingers at U.S. companies and companies around the world who are not spending their money to his liking. Now, is the Pope really just the biggest hypocritical socialist of all? Joining me, Veronica Dagger, wealth advisor columnist for the Wall Street Journal. Back with us is Pete Hegseth and Tammy Bruce. Let's take it to you, Veronica. What do you think?
You know, I think a lot of Catholic business leaders, the CEOs, are feeling alienated by some of the things he's saying. They're trying to do right by their workers. A lot of them are, these companies are very philanthropic. Our companies give a lot back to charity. They try to do right. Of course, there's some bad apples, right, in the mix. However, to categorize capitalism entirely as bad is really a misnomer. It has brought up a lot of people from poverty. The gap between the developed world and the developing world in terms of income has been shrinking, largely because of capitalism.
Right. And, you know, it's really, here's the issue. The Pope, you know, has consistently been attacking capitalism, Pete, when, you know, the half a dozen popes since the late 1800s through Pope John Paul II said communism and socialism is the most evil economic system in the world. We don't seem to hear that message from Pope Francis, right, Pete?
No, we don't. I mean, talk about income inequality. That is that income inequality that was referred to earlier between developed and non-developed countries because of what our capitalist society has unleashed, the wealth that it has brought. I mean, Pope Francis took his name from Francis of Assisi, who gave up privilege to live with the poor. What in the best of intentions, Pope Francis is seeking to help the poor, which has always been a tenet of the church. But if you really understand what that means uplifting as many people as possible, which capitalism has done like no other system the world has ever seen. Pete, so it means he has a fundamental misreading.
Right, Pete, here's the thing. And by the way, gang, it's an open secret. I'm raised Catholic. I love being Catholic. I really get a lot of spiritual, and as many Catholics do, spiritual healing and uplifting and transcendence from the faith. We get it that the Pope is putting the gospel message of the poor at the center of what he is talking about. But to Pete's point, Tammy, there was a precipitous drop in poverty worldwide, 80% over the last, 4 decades or so, because of capitalism. And, capitalism has not really taken hold around the world. We've got more leftist, interventionist government flourishing around the world.
Yeah, look, I believe in God. I'm not a big fan of organized religion, but I understand the good works of the Catholic Church. And look, but here's the issue. Popes are just men in robes, right? You've got a divine message, an important message about faith. And here we see the human condition having an impact on the nature of the message overall. To Pete's point, of course, capitalism saves lives. In the world today, you look around, it's not the income inequality. It is ISIS. It is barbarity. It is nations that don't have enough of the commitment to a capitalist society that has created powerful individuals and free lives that put them in a position of being victims effectively. And then, of course, it's our own leadership, whether they have the courage or not to do it. So this is about individual courage, recognition by the world about the importance of financial freedom, individual success and power, and a relationship with God. When it comes to popes, and I think others, it really is about their condition, their past, and we have to take all of that when we deal with it.
If you expect an encyclical from the Pope on, the evils of communism, 3 million people who starved under North Korea, do you think that will ever happen?
I don't think we're going to hear that, and I think it should be interesting to tune in on Thursday to see what he says to Congress. They might have a few surprises.
Interesting. Well, thank you, gang.
Okay. Not so much to add, but they've been talking about capitalism, and they said that if poverty was the issue, then capitalism has raised many people from poverty, and has done that for the last many years. Then why, if you say that it is capitalism that has made people poor, then you're bringing this mindset of socialism, then you are going to make people more poor than what capitalism has done. So these are analyzers, and they're really seeing the same argument. This is Jesuit Social Research Institute. Always forgive me, I like to quote from these guys because they're the intellectuals of the church. So what they understand for the church, I like it so much. They say Catholic social doctrine is not a surrogate for capitalism. They don't like it whatsoever. Jesuit Research Institute, Loyola University of New Orleans. Besides, Catholic social doctrine is not a surrogate for capitalism. In fact, although decisively condemning socialism, the Church, since Leo XIII's encyclical Rerum Novarum, has always distanced itself from capitalistic ideology. They don't want individuality. They don't want anything to do with making an individual develop himself, but we should develop you with the state, holding it responsible for the grave social injustices. This is what the guys have been arguing about. In Quadragesimo Anno Quadragesimo Anno Pius the Ninth, the one we read, for his part, used clear and strong words to stigmatize the international imperialism of money. This line is also confirmed in the more recent magisterium, and I myself, after the historical failure of communism, did not hesitate to raise serious doubts on the validity of capitalism. If by this impression one means not simply the market economy, but a system in which freedom, listen carefully, a system in which freedom in economic sector is not circumscribed within a strong juridical framework, which places it at the service of humanity in its totality. Do you know that time is coming that when you don't even have the freedom to ask for something, but you should only receive what has been given to you? So a committee will sit of members and they say, we have decreed that you do this. And if you raise up and say, excuse me, individually, I don't feel that is right, then you are not in unity, that is not solidarity, that is not the common good. If the common good says we should build the hospital now, no individual should refuse the hospital, because that is solidarity and it is the common good of every Adventist. Please, this is still Catholic social doctrine. Individualism must be left to people to decide. Let them be convinced, but not forced. And that when some don't, it is seen as a problem. So even the systems, even within churches, are becoming very socialistic. Capitalism is being thrown away. But remember, all this is Catholic thinking. If let's finish with these commandments. Look at commandment number 10. Why did the church remove the commandments? Why did they put them like as you see them now? The 10 commandments as they appear in Exodus, and here they're summarized in Deuteronomy, and here they are given in the catechetical formula. It says, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your thy neighbor's. Now, for them they come and separate this law into two. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not covet your neighbor's goods. What is gone? Number one, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. It was removed. Why does the church remove your neighbor's house? It's because you will not own a house, because a house is part of common good. But a wife, no, you can have your wife. But the house, it's gone. His manservant is gone. His maidservant, those are the workers, are gone. His ox, that is the one that digs for you, the tractor today. His ass, the transport, the car. You will not own a car even if you buy it. or anything that is your neighbor's. They have removed all of these and just put, you shall not covet your neighbor's goods, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Why did they remove? Why did they make the wife there and the rest of the part? Why did they remove the house and all of these? It's because they are part of the common good. So the common good, even in the changing of the commandments of God, how they're written in the Bible, has been changed in the Catholic way to suit the common good. Now, if I'm not going to have a house, the Bible tells me that they should not steal from me my house. But now, if I don't own a house anymore, how shall someone take away my house and I don't complain? Have you heard people who say the law is gone? Now, if the law is gone, isn't it okay when I take your house? Do you see the Pentecostal understanding of the law, saying the law is no more, is still under common good? That's why they say, no. It is not Saturday. That is the old law. Now we are in the new law. And which new law is that? The common good. Let's look at what they talk about this.
As the World Economic Forum begins in the Swiss city of Davos, Chairman Klaus Schwab welcomes world leaders. Marking 50 years of WEF, Schwab expressed pride in the community of politicians and businessmen.
Why I'm so proud of this community? Because those are people really still believing in the interconnectivity which we have in our world, into the fact that we are all interdependent, which believe in the strength and force of action.
The chairman's address was followed by the president of EU Commission.
I am convinced, as you are, Klaus, that a more just, sustainable economic system is possible. For too long, humanity took away resources from the environment and in exchange produced waste and pollution. I believe, as you do, that we can reconcile our economy with our planet. We can reconcile human development with the protection of our home. But we can only do it together.
The Davos gathering has battled a reputation.
Isn't that common good? We can work together, reconcile everything. So you are going to be happy, but you'll own nothing. This is the message basically they're trying to say. Stay there. Together, we are going to create a just economic system. What is that called justice? We have seen it as we read in the encyclical of the Catholic Church. Now let's also listen to them telling us how you will be happy with nothing. You own nothing, but you have everything.
This is the plan that I have repeatedly warned about, to take the tools of oppression used to tackle the coronavirus and use them, all lockdowns, forced business closures, exclusion zones, isolation. We heard Angela Marsden earlier, businesses shut down, isolation at home, all of those measures, including destroying private property rights and private income in order to tackle the climate crisis.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight the real virus, but to shape the system We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate, and rebalance our worlds. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset, are fundamental to building the future we need.
And that last
Okay.
one was the clown Guterres, who was
So you'll be happy, but you'll own nothing. They are telling you already that you are going to build. They go to the highest men in the world, the World Economic Forum. They put the King of England, and they showed how all these will come into existence. Isaiah 65, 21, 23. They will build houses and dwell in them. Just the opposite of what they are thinking. The world we want is where I can build my house. So you build a house and dwell in them. These ones are the ones to construct for you the state, and you sit in and you live in it. They will plant vineyards and eat their fruits. These ones theirs. They will be the ones planting, because already Gates is buying all the farms, and you sit there and they will bring you food by drone. All that nonsense. No longer will they build houses and others live in them. Nothing like common good. You will go and build your house and live in it. Not to the state to bring. Isn't this capitalism? You have your own house, you build it and you live in it. You plant and others eat. So you come and plant and others come and eat. They don't work, but they will eat. Common good. For as the days of a tree, so will the days of my people. My chosen ones will long enjoy the work of their hands. They will not labor in vain, nor will they bear children doomed to misfortune. For they will be a people blessed by the Lord. They are their descendants with them. I think no other words to add on this scripture, but to just say, may God help us to see this Babylon, the systems, the political and the religious Babylon, come out of her, my people. It is fallen, it is fallen. The religious is fallen, the political is fallen. I appeal to people of the world. I appeal to presidents. I appeal to everyone, to the kings of this world. Please run, come out of her, my people. The Bible says, you are a person created by God. He needs you to come out of this. Brothers and sisters, I appeal to the church. Stop wasting time in lands and things that are here, which are not ours. We will build in the promised land, but here nothing is ours. Strive to make sure that the gospel goes into the world and we do the work very fast and we go home, instead of gathering things on this earth, which is not our home. May God guide us, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for having led us this far. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. There are many things that are Babylon that we don't look at. This is how Babylon is entering slowly, using the common good and gathering all the world. But help us, O Lord, open our eyes that we may see this. Open the eyes of your church. Open the eyes of the presidents of this world. Open the eyes of all leaders at all levels to see through the deception and come to you. May your name be blessed, and bless us as well as we we continue to ponder upon these things and spread the message. Help us to take the message as fast as we can, that we may go home where we shall plant our food and eat it, and build houses and we dwell in them. In Jesus' name.